My thesis is titled Truck Sourcing Strategies of Freight Aggregator. At the onset, let us try to understand a bit about this freight transportation industry and who the market actors are. So, road transportation that is mainly fulfilled by trucks contributes to 65% of the worldwide freight transport activity that is mainly fulfilled through heavy commercial vehicles. If we take the case of India, then 70% of today's domestic freight demand is fulfilled by trucks, and this road transport activity is expected to increase to 9.6 trillion ton kilometers by 2050. However, despite this high volume, there exists an inherent problem in this industry that are being faced by the market actors. Now, to understand the problems, let us first try to understand who the market actors are in this industry. The demand side of the network is formed of the shippers, who are basically large manufacturing firms, and they have the loads with them that needs to be shipped from one location to another. The supply side of the network is formed of the carriers, who are basically truck owners and brokers, and they have the trucks available with them that are required for doing those shipments. Now, the problem that I was talking about is that this industry is highly fragmented. Now, what I mean by that is that if we take the case of US, then 90% of fleet owners have less than 10 trucks with them. If we take the case of India, then 75% of fleet owners have less than 5 trucks with them. Now, this creates a problem for both the carriers and the shippers. The carriers have weaker negotiation power due to lack of information regarding the demand hotspots, which makes their vehicle to go underutilized. The shippers to face difficulties in terms of tracking the vehicles when they have a loads ready that needs to be shipped. Now, this is where freight aggregator comes into play, as they act as an intermediary that helps in connecting the demand of the shippers with the supply of trucks of the carriers. Now, some of the popular freight aggregators are Freighterra and Convoy that primarily operates in the US and Canada. In India, we have Delivery and Blackbuck. Now, my thesis comprises of 3 studies. The first study looks into the aggregator's operation problem through a comprehensive literature review, wherein it tries to prepare a mathematical modeling landscape into understanding how the literature into understanding aggregators' integrated operational problems have evolved over time. The second study examines the dynamic optimal truck procurement strategy of a freight aggregator operating under demand uncertainty that is arising due to late information revealed from the shipper regarding the exact trucking requirements for a particular shipment day, and price uncertainty due to transacting in the volatile market, where the prices are changing every day due to several factors such as seasonality, fuel cost, regional imbalances, and market volatility. The third study then integrates a real world data and illustrates how the theoretically developed decision rules helps the aggregator in making real field decisions upon observing the historical prices. So in the first study, I primarily try to answer 2 research questions that includes what are the various OR models and solution techniques employed in the literature to understand the aggregator's integrated operational problems, and how has the modeling landscape evolved over time. The second research question is into understanding the prospects of future research from the modeling considerations in examining the aggregator's integrated operational problems. In the second study, I tried to examine the truck procurement strategy in order to determine the following 2 decisions for the freight aggregator. The first research question is to understand to what extent should the aggregators utilize the dynamic freight market so that the shippers' trucking requirements are met. And the second research question is into answering when should such procurement decisions be taken by the freight aggregator. In the third study, I basically answer on how the aggregator can utilize the analytically derived decision rules so as to make day-to-day procurement and selling decisions in the dynamic freight market such that the shipper's trucking requirements are completely fulfilled. Now, coming to the key findings, the literature review offers 5 promising research themes and identifies several potential avenues and questions under each of these themes that are worth investigating in the future. The first theme is regarding the aggregator's behavior and preferences. The second theme is on to understanding or further examination on the fair profit sharing mechanisms under collaboration, developing bid advisory systems, and developing models or frameworks to handle uncertain or dynamic request management in aggregators operations. The last theme is into developing efficient operational models in the aggregators operations. In the second study, I developed an optimal procurement framework under demand uncertainty that is coming due to late information revealed from the shipper and price uncertainty that is due to transacting in the volatile dynamic freight market. The framework strategically leverages on the volatile dynamic freight market price to reduce the procurement cost of the aggregator. I show the importance of applying the optimal policy derived in this thesis over the current industry practice and show the increasing value of applying it as the market volatility rises. An interesting result of this thesis is that, unlike the common belief, early information about the exact demand actually harms the aggregator. Very late information too harms the aggregator, and I found that there exists an interior best reveal time for the aggregator, showcasing the implication of who takes what proportion of the risk amongst the aggregator and the shippers based on the time of demand reveal. The study's analysis also shows that for the aggregator, having a better understanding of the DFM price patterns and volatility is more important than the belief on the demand before demand revelation, because the former acts as a primary driver in reducing the procurement cost of the aggregator. Finally, in the third study, I apply certain data pre-processing and processing steps in order to illustrate the real-world application of the theoretically developed optimal policy. In addition, I performed certain analysis that validated the findings of the numerical investigation done in the third study. My thesis offers several managerial implications. First, the thesis proposes a structured optimal decision-making framework that guides the optimal procurement decisions of the aggregator. The thesis offers a clear build the notebook and play the notebook for the aggregator. By building the notebook, I mean this thesis offers clear decision rules for the aggregator that it needs to consider to make optimal procurement decisions. And by playing the notebook, my thesis exactly tells the aggregator on how much to procure or sell by observing the current prices in the dynamic freight market. Second, unlike the traditional belief that stable or volatile market prices are beneficial, the thesis shows that it is actually not the case. Stable or low volatility basically only simplifies the decision making for the aggregator. However, the thesis shows the potential of the framework devised in this thesis that actively leverages on the volatile market prices to strategically reduce the procurement cost of the aggregator. Lastly, if the aggregator is to emphasize on prediction accuracy, the thesis suggests that the aggregator must focus on estimating DFM price volatility as it serves as the primary factor that affects the procurement cost and pre-revelation demand belief only acting as the secondary factor. As I end my presentation, I would like to thank my Research Advisory Committee, my RAC Chairperson, Professor Ashutosh Sarkar, Professor Saparya Suresh, my area member, and Professor Aishwarya Ramasundaram, my cross-area member, for the consistent support and guidance throughout my journey that helped the eventual completion of my thesis. I would also like to thank Professor Arkam Mateen and the Indian and the foreign examiner for the careful evaluation of my thesis that helped me in improving it. Thank you.